Masechet Ketubot, Daf Yod Het. We are going to be dealing with Dinei Mamonot today because the Mishnah is leading us there. The Mishnah mentioned that even Rabbi Yoshua, who denied Migo arguments regarding a Ketubah, accepts a Migo argument when it comes to a land claim. If someone comes and says, hey, that's my land you're sitting on, and I say, listen, it was your father's, but I bought it from him. So since he has no proof, if he has proof that it wasn't his family, that it's his or it was his father's, then I have to show the document how I bought it, or he gifted it to me. But if he doesn't have any proof, then I am believed to say it was your father's and I bought it, because I could have said, it was never yours, it was mine the whole time. All right, that was the example that the Mishnah brought. And now the Gemara wonders, why does it bring such a complicated example with the father? And then we had to say it was where the father was alive for 2 of the years, and then he died, and then the son was there for another couple of years, and they didn't make a claim and all that. Right? Couldn't the Mishnah have picked a simpler case of amigo that is in a monetary case? We know the Elazar does not accept migo, so the Yoshua does not accept migo when it comes to ketubah, because there it's regarding arayot, lineage, so we're more stringent. But we could have picked a simpler case regarding monetary law, so we're going to go through a couple of other possible cases where he could have said migo. So vilitne modeh Rabbi Yoshua beomer lachavero maneh laviti mimecha uferativ lecha shehu ne'eman. If you come and say, hey, you owe me money, and I admit that I could have said, no, I don't owe you anything, and I wouldn't have to pay you. If I admit, yes, I borrowed money from you, but I already paid you back, so that person is believed. Good. Mishum dekaba mitnesefa. Why don't we use that example? Because we're going to have to follow it up with an alternate case. Im yesh adim shehu lava mimenu. If you come with witnesses that say that I borrowed money from you, then I don't have amigo. I can't claim that I could have said nothing because I have to answer your witnesses. So in order for the case to work in the Mishnah, it would have had to be true that if you had witnesses that I did in fact borrow, then I would not be able to make a claim that said I paid you back. However, that's not true. The bottom line halacha is that even if we make a loan and there are witnesses at the time of the loan that show that I borrowed money from you, I don't have to pay back in front of witnesses. You might have thought, another opinion, that since I borrowed in front of witnesses, I have to pay back in front of witnesses so that everything is equal. But that is not true. I can pay back without witnesses. Therefore, even if you claim with witnesses that I borrowed from you, and I say, yes, I did borrow from you, but I paid you back, I am believed, even without witnesses, to say I paid you back. And therefore, we wouldn't be able to have a sefa if this was the case of the resha. So that's why we don't use that case. All right, next try. Vilitne modeh Rabbi Yoshua beomer lachavero maneh leavicha beyadi ve'echaltiv peras shehu ne'eman. The Mishnah could have brought a case where someone claims money, and I come and say, listen, I did borrow $100 from your father, right? Your father I have $100 of your father, meaning I borrowed it, and I fed him, meaning I paid back half. That I am believed. Since I could have denied the whole thing and said, I don't know what you're talking about, I never borrowed money, I never owed you or your father anything. If I admit that your father did lend me, but I paid back half, that would be believed. It's interesting because now we're back to another case with the father and son, which is still more complicated, but I guess still it's not as complicated as the one that we were talking about where the father's alive for 2 years and worried about a chazakah and all that. All right, so maybe this is a good case that we could have brought, and we ask, Aliba deman. Well, the decision on this case would depend on the machloket tanaim that we're about to see in this baraita. Aliba de Rabbanan ha'amre meshiv aveda haveh. Aliba de Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov ha'amar shivu aba'eh. Rabbanan say this is a case of meshiv aveda, because we're talking about a case where you did not claim anything to say, hey, you have to pay me $100. I came on my own and I said to the son, to the orphan, the father died, and I come to the son and I say, listen, when your father was alive, I borrowed 100, but I paid back 50. In this case, of course I'm believed because I could have said nothing. In fact, it's not even. I don't even need a migo here. This is like returning a lost object, and that's the law. If I come and return a lost object to you, you can't come and say, "Hey, you, there was more money in there. You owe me more." Right? This is if I find your wallet, right, and I return the wallet, and you say, "Hey, there was $200 in here, and now there's only 100. You have to pay me 100." No, I'm returning your wallet. You can't have any claim against me. I don't need a migo. And the same thing here. Since you never made a claim, I came and admitted. I borrowed 200. I already paid back 50. Here's the other 50. Therefore, you don't need a migo, so that can't be the case of the Mishnah. And if you follow the Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, he said that I need to make a swear. There's a general rule that modeh b'miksat. If someone does have a claim against me 100, and I say, yeah, I did owe you 100, but I paid back 50. I only have to give you 50. So there is a law, we're going to see that it's probably even a Doraita law, that I have to swear that I only owe you 50, and then I'm believed, but only after I swear. So the Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, even though in this case you never made a claim, I came and admitted it myself and said, hey, your father gave me 100, I paid back 50. Nevertheless, even though I admitted it, I still have to swear because I admitted half. It's modeh b'miksat. And therefore, he can't be the author of this Mishnah. If we use this case, it wouldn't be possible, according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, because I'm actually not believed. I have to make a swear. Okay, so now we're going to see the Braita in the original. Detanya Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, Pa'amim she'adam nishba al ta'anat atzmo. You can have a case where I will have to make a swear on my own admission, even though you didn't make any claim. The standard case, everyone agrees, that is you make a claim of 100 and I admit to 50, I have to swear about the other 50. But sometimes, even if I come and admit, I still have to make a swear. Kesad, Maneh le'avicha bi'adi v'echalti peras. This exact case where I admit that your father lent me 100, but I paid back half. Hareh ze nishba v'zehu shenishba al tanat atzmo. He has to swear, and according to the Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, this is a case where someone swears even for his own admission. Chachamim say, no, there's only one side in this case. You didn't even make any claim. Since I came on my own free will and said, hey, I want to give you $50 because it's something missing. I'm returning a lost article. So therefore, no, I don't need a swear. I don't need any claim. I don't need a migo. I don't have to prove anything. Okay, so Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, let them yeshiv abeda patur. And now we're going to ask, doesn't Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov have this concept that if I do find something and return it, I don't have to swear about anything, and no one can have a claim against me? Doesn't he agree with that concept? Amarav beto'ano katan. Oh, we're talking about a case where the orphan was a minor, and therefore there is a claim. There is in fact a claim. That's why it's if I came on my own free will without any claim and said, here, I owed your father 50, then Rabbi Eliezer would agree. I don't need to swear. But if the minor orphan makes a claim against me, then there is a claim. There's two sides. That's what we're talking about. Then we reject that. Wait a second. The master also said that when the claimant is a deaf mute, imbecile, minor, they don't have enough cognition to make a valid claim in court, and therefore they cannot require me to make to swear. So that case can't be talking about that. So we say no, my katan gadol. Actually, in that statement, the word katan, even though usually means minor, is actually talking about an adult. So why are you calling him a minor? Because with regard to his father's business matters, he is like a minor. In other words, he doesn't know everything that the father lent out and what's coming in, and he doesn't have access to all the invoices, or just doesn't know what the father did. So he's like a katan, but in fact, he is an adult. Okay, so that's what case we're talking about, that the adult son came and made a claim against me. Now we ask, Ihachi tanat asmo. If tanat asmo, tanat acherim hi. The Baraita said, Rabbi Eliezer says, sometimes someone can make a swear on his own admission. But if you're saying that the adult son made a claim, then it's not my own admission anymore. Someone made a claim, so it wouldn't fit into the category that the Braita was looking for. What we mean is someone else claimed, but I did admit. And so that's a case. Even though someone else claimed, since I admitted, it's called my own claim. But that doesn't work either, because every single case is always going to be when someone makes a claim against me, and I admit to half of it. That's the classic case of modeh b'miksat, where everyone agrees you have to take an oath. So this wouldn't be anything interesting, that an opinion that would be particular to be Eliezer ben Yaakov. And therefore, this line of reasoning can't be. Rather, to explain this machloket, in fact, Eliezer ben Yaakov and the rabbis are discussing a different matter that's explicated by the later Amora Rabbah. How come the Torah said? So you see here that the rabbis are considering it a deoraita law. How come if I admit to a part of it, then I know I have to swear to the other part, even though if I denied the whole thing, I wouldn't have to swear? Because chazakah, this is a presumption of human psychology. And Adam me'is pana bifnei ba'al chovo. A person doesn't have such shamelessness to deny the person that he owes money to totally, right? If I really owe you $100, and you come and say, hey, pay me $100, most people, okay, of course there's very evil people, but most run-of-the-mill people, even if though they want to get out of paying, they're not going to deny to his face and say, I owe you $0. So therefore, if you say 0, we believe. And really, this guy owes money, would like to deny the entire loan, but he's embarrassed to deny the whole loan. And in fact, he wishes he could admit the whole loan if he had money to pay. But he doesn't have money right now to pay. But he wants to get the creditor off his back. So he says, okay, I owe you part. I paid you part. Here's a little, right? Just to get him to stop. Maybe if he pays him half and he denies the other half. So people do have enough shame that they'll say, no, I don't owe you that much. I only owe you a little. So human psychology says that's fine. People will lie a little bit. They just won't totally lie. And person's thinking, well, until I get money, then I'll repay him the half. It's not that I'm cheating him and never going to pay him. I want to pay him half now. I want him to go away. So that's why I'm saying I only owe you half. People will, even regular, some generally honest people will give a half lie. So therefore, that's why Hashem says, Torah says, Halacha requires that a person should swear so that I will have to admit the entire loan, right? So we're not worried a person's going to deny the whole thing, but a person would deny half of it. If he has to swear, then he'll say, okay, you're right, I do owe you the whole thing. Well, that was in the previous answer. No, that was only in the previous answer where we said it must be an adult that came. In this answer, we don't. It's not an adult that came and made any claim. We rejected that. So instead, we're explaining the machlok in a different way, and they're arguing about this psychology here. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Sabar. We're still saying that maybe it was a child. It was a child that made a claim, but then that's not a real claim. You could. It doesn't matter. So Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Sabar lo shena bo velo shena bibno eno me'iz vilkach lab meshib abeda have. Rabbi Eliezer says this logic of psychology is true both with the person himself that I borrowed from and if he died with his son. I'm not going to lie outright, not to the father and not to the son, because now the son is my creditor, and so I'm not going to deny that I owe him, and say I owe him 0, but I may do a half lie, and that's why I have to give a shivu'ah, whether the father says that's a regular case of modeh miksat, or the son, even if the son's a minor. So because the son is a minor, you might have thought I don't have to. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says I would still not lie in front of a minor, but I would make a half a lie, so it requires a shavua. But Rabbanan Sabre bohu de'eno me'iz, aval bibno me'iz, umedela me'iz mishum meshiv abeda haveh. Rabbi Rabbanan say no. A generally honest person would not totally lie to the father from whom he actually borrowed the money, but most people think in their head after that father dies, like, oh, he died, I'm not going to have to pay back anymore. Oh, the son comes, a little kid, hey, you owed my father, get out of here, I don't owe you anything, right? So even a general run-of-the-mill person would not be be embarrassed to make a total lie. And therefore, I do have a migo. Since I could have said, get out of here, I don't owe you anything, and people would say that, but instead I say, you're right, I did owe your father 50, but I paid back 50. Therefore, it's like an admission, and I don't have to make a swear according to Rabbanan. So that's the conclusion. Either way, this case will not fit into the blueprint of our Mishnah, because according to Rabbanan, it's like Meshiv Aveda, so it's not because of Amigo, it's not a good example of Amigo. According to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, I have to give a swear, and so it would not be a case where I am believed. And that's why the Mishnah could not have used either of these cases that we just tried. Alright, next Mishnah continues in Dinei Mamonot. העדים שאמרו כתב ידינו הוא זה, אבל אנוסים היינו, קטנים היינו, פסולי עדות היינו, הרי אלו נאמנים. Okay, first a quick intro. Whenever someone has a document, a shtar, like an IOU, we have witnesses on the bottom. If I lent you money, so I have the shtar, if I want to collect money, I have to bring it to court. And the court, they don't collect right away. First, they have to certify that the document is authentic. How do you authenticate a document? There's three ways. Either we look at the edim, who are they? Bring them in. So if the edim come and they look at it, yes, this is our handwriting. We signed this document. That's one way to do it. But they could be not around. I mean, the witnesses could be dead, and still it's going to be authentic. A second way to do it is if friends who know the signature of the witnesses come in and say, we know their signature, yes, we recognize it, that's authentic. Or if we have another document that was already authenticated that the same witnesses signed, and we can put it side by side, like they do in banks when you sign a check. At least they used to do. I don't think anybody checks anymore. And they'll say, oh yeah, it matches, and this was authenticated. Therefore, we know this is an authentic document. Okay, so those are the three ways we can authenticate a document. Let's say the witnesses themselves come in and they say, yes, this is our handwriting. We did sign it, but we did it under duress. The Gemara will talk about what kind of duress, right? We didn't want to sign it, and therefore it's invalid. Or they say, at the time we signed it, we were minors. A minor can't be a witness to a document, or we were disqualified witnesses. Maybe they were relatives, or they were gamblers, and therefore they are saying this is not an authentic document, and you can't use it, you cannot collect your debt. So they are believed, since they could have said that it's not our handwriting, this is a forgery. Instead, they say something else, so we should believe them. But if the witnesses come in and we have another way of authenticating it based on other people that recognize the handwriting or comparing it to other things that they signed, then we don't believe them because they don't have amigo anymore. They could not have said we never signed it because we have independent proof that they signed it, so then we don't believe them to say that we signed it under duress or we were disqualified, and the document can be used even though the witnesses are standing right there and saying that we were disqualified witnesses. All right, fantastic. The Gemara is now going to bring a statement by Rami Bar Chama that limits the Mishnah. We're going to see two versions, one where it applies to the Sefa, the next where it applies to the Resha. Amar Rami Bar Chama, lo shanu ela shamru anusim hayunu mechamat mamon. In the Sefa here that says when there is independent authentication of the signatures, then we do not believe the witnesses. That's only true when they come and say that we were under duress because of money. In other words, someone came and said, hey, you better sign this false document or else we're going to take $1,000 from you. In that case, one is not allowed to sign the document. Even if someone's going to take money from you, you can't go violate important a mitzvah and then go sin, because now you're signing a document that's going to be used by someone else for nefarious purposes. And so in that case, the person, by admitting that, yeah, I signed it because I was compelled to because of a monetary threat, he's admitting that he did something wrong. That's self-incriminating. And self-incriminating evidence we do not accept. And therefore, that person will not be believed, and the document is authentic. The signature is valid. We deny his testimony when he says he himself did something wrong. But if the witness says that we were compelled by the force of our life, someone put a gun to her and says, you better sign this document falsely or else we'll kill you, then that is allowed. They are allowed to sign and not be killed. And therefore, since that's not self-incriminating evidence, the witnesses would in fact be believed to say that they signed under duress, and therefore the document would be thrown out because it's not authenticated. The witnesses, yeah, they signed it, but it was under duress. Okay, Amar le Rava. Kol kemineh. Rava says, wait, isn't it in their power of the witnesses to retract? We have a general rule that once a witness says something, they cannot retract their own testimony. They submitted it. That's it. It's in the vault. It's officially recorded, and they can't go back on their word. As it says, Kevan shehigid shub eno chozer magid. This is a general principle. Once a witness testified in court, he cannot go back and testify again and take back what he said. And maybe you'll say, yeah, that's a general procedure in court when it's an oral testimony. I can't go again and say, I want to testify again and retract it. But maybe in a document, I would be able to, but that's not true. Resh Lakish taught that witnesses that sign a document are the same as oral witnesses. Just like an oral, usually when you have oral testimony, you have to bring the two witnesses and separate them, ask them questions, make sure it lines up. We have to cross-examine them. When you have edim and ashtad, you can't actually do that because they're not around. They could have been they could be in a foreign country. They could be dead. But as Shakish says, that when they sign, it's as if we already cross-examine and accept their testimony. The point for us is that it's considered equivalent, and therefore, just like oral witnesses cannot retract, so too written document witnesses cannot retract their testimony. So Rami Bar Chama could not have been saying his statement about the sefa, where according to that he would say, if the witnesses came and say, we were under duress, we accept that testimony, and it's as if they're undoing their testimony, taking it back. Rather, we're going to flip his statement around, and he actually said it on the first half of the Mishnah, where it says, Hare elu ne'emanin. In the Resha, where there is no independent corroboration of their witnesses, so we're relying on them to say, I signed it. So therefore, they could have said, that's not our signature. In that case, we believe them when they say that it's our signature, but there's a problem with it. That's the case where yes, if they come and say, listen, that is our signature, but I was under duress of my life, then we accept them because there's no self-incriminating evidence, and they could have said it's not our testimony, so it was never authenticated in the first place. Therefore, we accept it, and we say, yeah, it was under duress, and we throw out the document. Aval amiru anusin hayunu mechamat mamon and ne'emanin. However, if they say that we were under duress because of money, then we cannot accept that testimony. My ta'ama en adam mesim asmo rasha. A person does not render himself wicked. If a person comes and says, I did something bad, we actually do not accept his own testimony, because then he's actually making himself into a wicked person, and we don't accept the testimony from a wicked person. So it's a kind of paradox. And therefore, we reject that testimony, and we say the document is perfectly fine. And this has to be on the Resha. In the Sefa, where we had independent testimony from someone else that said this is what they signed this document, there it's as if they already came and claimed, yes, we signed the document. And once they make that claim, they cannot undo it by saying something else, that we were under duress. So therefore, he has to be on the Resha. All right. Now, one last baraita that relates directly to this Mishnah is a machloket between two Tanaim, Tanu Rabbanan, and ne'emanin lefoslo. Dibir Rabbi Meir, Chachamim omrim ne'emanin. They say, in general, according to the Rabbi Meir, witnesses are not believed to invalidate a document, to say, oh, there was something wrong with our signatures. We don't believe them, Rabbi Meir says. Chachamim say, we do believe them. So Chachamim fits with the Resha of our Mishnah that also says, if they come and say that these are signatures, but we were children, we were invalid, we do believe them. So Bishlam al Rabbanan, Kitamayu Shapesh Asar Hu Apesh Yitir. Now we understand Rabbanan, it's the same as the reasoning in the Mishnah, which was based on Miga. They are the very same ones that said these are our signatures. So they are also believed to say, but when we signed it, we were minors, we were invalid, we were under duress. So good. Rabbanan, we understand perfectly. Ela Rabbi Meir, my ta'ama. But according to Rabbi Meir, who said that we do not accept the witnesses when they say, I was invalid, instead we ignore them and we authenticate the document. What's their reasoning? If they come and say that we were invalid, we were related, or we were gamblers, then we understand why the Bimei will reject them, because the lender, is always going to check the signature, check the witnesses first. It's very important to the lender to make sure that this document will be able to be used in court, and therefore the lender is always going to get good witnesses. And he's going to ask them 100 times, are you related? Are you a gambler or anything? And therefore, since the Malveh, we assume, did a good job checking to make his own document, when these witnesses come later and said, oh, we were not valid, we don't accept it. Ketanim namek, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, damar Resh Lakish, hazakay na'adim chotmin al ashtar, ela im ken na'asa begadol. Resh Lakish says that since in general, minors cannot sign a document, there's a general presumption that when witnesses sign, we can assume that they were adults, because no one's going to allow a kid to come and sign, so you don't have to worry about it. And so if someone says, oh, I was a child when I signed, we don't believe him. Ela anusin my ta'ama. But if someone comes and says, I was compelled, then why would it be Me'id reject that testimony? Could be someone was actually signed under duress. Amar Rav Chisda, Kasabar Me'ir, Edim, Shamru Lahem, Chitmu Sheker, Val Teharegu, Yeharegu, Ve'al Yachtemu Sheker. Rav Chisda says something, so really, you can't believe that he said this. According to Rav Chisda, he thinks that according to the Rabbi Meir, if someone tells witnesses, hey, you better sign this or die, that the halacha, according to him, is that they should die rather than sign. And therefore, when they come and say, oh, we signed under duress of our lives, we reject their testimony because that's self-incriminating, right? They're saying that we did something wrong by signing and not dying. So this is quite astounding, because it's seems to be an opinion that says that you should allow yourself to be killed. You must allow yourself to be killed rather than forge a document. But we know that's not the generally accepted halacha. So his challenge, Amar le Rava, hashta ilu atu lekaman amluche amrinan lehu, zilu chatamu velo titkatelun. Rava says, even if if the witnesses came, someone was under duress, right? They said, sign this or die. They said, wait, we have to go ask our rabbis. So, okay, let them go. And if they would come to us, even before it happened, we would tell them, go sign it and don't die. You don't have to. And we know that this is not one of the big three. The only three matters that are stand in front of saving a life, in other words, that are more important than life itself, are not doing idolatry or illicit relations or murder. Those you have to give up your life before violating. But this you don't have to. So even if they would ask us beforehand, we would tell them, sign it. Now that they already signed it, are we going to tell them, because you signed it, even b'di avad, you're considered sinners, reshaim, and we reject your testimony? This doesn't make sense. This is not the law. So this is not self-incriminating evidence. Rather, we have to find a different reason why Rabbi Meir would reject witnesses who said we signed under duress. Ela tamad Rabbi Meir k'Rav Huna Amarav. Rav Huna Amarav modeh bishtar sheketavo en sarich lekayemo. Rav said that you don't have to authenticate a document in all cases. For example, if the lender comes and says, "Hey, you owe me money," and the borrower comes and says, "Oh yeah, this is a valid shtar. I wrote it." Usually, the borrower will write the IOU, right, and give it to the lender. If the borrower comes and says, "I did in fact write this document," then we don't have to bother going and finding witnesses to authenticate the document, because the borrower, the whole point of the witnesses is to authenticate that the borrower really agreed to this. But if he admits that he wrote it, then you don't need to. And therefore, in this case, since you have the signatures there, and the witnesses come and say, "Yes, that is our signature," we could just say, "Stop there. This is a document that we don't even need to authenticate," the same as if the borrower himself admitted to writing it. And therefore, when the witnesses continue and say, "Oh, but we were under duress," we say, "You know what? This is a authenticated document. We don't need your authentication." And that's Rabbi Meir's reasoning for saying that we reject the testimony of the witnesses and the document is still authentic. Baruch Adonai Olam. Amen ve'amen.